It's Paul Marsh, and I'm delighted to say that I've been joined by Bookworm director Ant Timpson. And thank you so much for joining me.
Paul, I was going to say it's my pleasure, but we'll see how it goes.
I like the optimism. um,
No, it's lovely to be here. Thank you.
well, look, I was going to say something really nice, but I will say something really nice anyway. Bookworm is a fantastic movie. I watched it with my son, who's 6 years old, and any type of a film that reminds me of like maybe an old 80s family movie, which takes you on a little bit of a journey, throw in maybe a little bit of danger as well. I'm all here for that.
Oh, great. Yeah. I mean, that's, definitely Toby Harvard, the writer of The Beast that I collaborated with. He's very much that 80s generation, where I was more of a 70s kid. So, when we were working out that we wanted to do a wilderness film, I was sort of, mining those 70s wilderness films, and he was mining the sort of early 80s adventures. So it's a kind of an amalgam of those two worlds. But yeah, the whole thing was to make something that didn't feel like it pandered to kids and could play to general audiences like the stuff we grew up with. Yeah, no bubble wrapping the kids, like put a little bit of danger in there, because those are the kind of things I remember as a kid, those
Yeah.
traumatic little minor trauma moments in films that you never forget. And God bless Disney for having those kind of like vicious wildlife attacks in their movies and things early on. But yeah, it's nice to have kind of, villains and those sort of films that have a little bit of a real dark streak to them.
Well, you talk about not bubble wrapping it for the kids. I spoke to Felicity Ward probably about a month ago, who's a comedian, and she's also the new head of the office in the Australian Office TV series.
Oh, yeah.
And we were talking about the difference between, especially with UK and Australia and New Zealand, the difference in the level of swearing and what is acceptable and what's not acceptable. And there's a lot of what I call mild swear words that I think are completely acceptable in Australia and maybe not quite as acceptable in the UK.
All right. That's funny because we grew up with network TV, unlike the US, which is like everything was so heavily censored for
Mm.
network TV. But we grew up with British, obviously, with a lot of UK TV, and I just remember the language being absolutely whatever you wanted. Like it felt like it was very core, like all the early crime shows I had, where everyone was just like swearing off, out of control. So I never realized that in terms of the difference between the Antipodeans and the UK. But yeah, we wanted to kind of push that PG aspect because we were told that we had to deliver a PG film. It was going to help us in terms of like reaching the right demographics and things. So we aim for it, but even though we managed to get kids tripping on mushrooms and really extreme, quite pushing the boundaries of language, calling a kid an asshole. Yeah, but we had fun with riding that balance, that high beam.
I have to ask, what did you see from Elijah Wood in Come to Daddy that you knew would work in Bookworm?
Yeah, when Elijah's become like this kind of avatar or human vessel for Toby and I to sort of hang our male insecurities on as men and dads. And this because the whole genesis of Bookworm came out of like my singular fear of not stepping up in a moment of crisis as a parent and shitting the bed in front of my kids. And so, which was based on like this horrible vacation that went wrong and turned into, a really nasty extreme end. So
Oh,
it
wow.
was like yeah. So it was like there was a little bit human horror, had a personal attachment to it, but we wanted to milk it for comedic effects, much like Come to Daddy was based on a really personal, traumatic moment for me that we kind of flipped and made it a black comedy. And so yeah, so we that was the kind of the starting point to where it was all going to go. But yeah, I don't even know if I answered the question, but
But
I
you
went off
knew
the
that he
rails.
was your lucky charm and he was coming along for the
Oh,
ride.
sorry. Yeah. So now Elijah, we feel like because it's a character where it's kind of you can push the extremes, and there's so much natural empathy for Elijah from the audience. There's so much good inherent goodwill to him as a human being. He's just honestly off screen. He's one of the loveliest humans on Earth. So, and it translates. I feel like you can kind of make him a bit of a prat and push those that kind of exaggerated, borderline cartoony aspects of the character, and he will still retain a connection with the audience and sort of win them over because we didn't just want him to be a non-stop punching bag for Mildred, played by Nell Fisher. We kind of wanted it um, to sort of the audience not just to go switch off him. So he had to have that ability, and Elijah brings it in spades.
Well, his character Strawn kind of reminds me a little bit of Timothy Chalamet's Willy Wonka. There's a lot of big bravado, there's a lot of, showmanship, but underneath all of that, I think that he's just a scared little boy.
Yeah, I mean, he's someone who hasn't been a father, and he's just floundering, and the character. I mean, there's a fish out of water aspect of putting a LA, Vegas illusionist in the middle of the deep south of New Zealand alone. But when you strip away all that sort of smoke and mirrors, there's just a guy who has no idea how it is to be a father, and so that's the aspect that was really interesting to us. Is like both of these characters have masks. And we spend the film sort of stripping them away, and then they learn a bit more about each other and hopefully form a sort of bond that was, very much broken at the start of the film.
Yeah, I think as much as Elijah is the big name of the film, Nell Fisher steals the show, doesn't she? She is absolutely
Mm.
amazing this. Now, after seeing her in Evil Dead Rise and then this, I had absolutely no idea about her real accent. Did that surprise you as well?
Well, no, because I mean, I saw her in as an 8-year-old in this indie film from back home here. And so, because of her work, she went on to a Netflix thing, and um, and of course Evil Dead Rise, and she had to, basically master the American accent. She's naturally got a very clipped UK one,
Mm.
and but she was a Kiwi for a long time as well, so she naturally had a New
Ah.
Zealand accent. And then she lost the New Zealand accent the more time she went back and spent in the UK. So she had to kind of relearn her Kiwi accent. So yeah, so it was funny because there was moments where she catches herself and of sort of slipping back out of it a little bit. But yeah, she's extraordinary that she's already got 3 accents under her belt and can pull them out when she needs to. She's going to be huge, man. I can't wait to see her in Stranger Things.
Don't you just hate these young, talented actors that are
Yeah,
literally that young and they've just got everything?
it's because they stop answering your calls once they take off.
But yeah, no, you're right. I think she's fantastic, and I can see her going on to do amazing, amazing things. Speaking of amazing things, the one thing that I really loved and I thought was so subtle that I didn't even notice it the first time, I had to go back and rewatch it. It's your
Hmm.
aspect ratio change. I
Oh, right.
loved it. I loved it. I didn't
Well,
even, like I say,
yeah,
I didn't realize it was just at some point throughout the film, I thought, oh, hang on, it's changed. And I had to go back and rewatch it and find out where it had changed and how it was changed. And it was done
yeah,
so well. It reminded me, I'm not sure if you've seen it or not, the horror film X. Have you seen
yeah.
that?
Of course, yeah, yeah.
So there's an aspect ratio change in that as well. And it was very similar. It reminded me of that. Where did you get that from? How, why? Where did it come from?
I mean, it's the Wizard of Oz moment, right? So when Dorothy's world blows out and becomes this Technicolor dream, we wanted the same thing of a character who's living a very enclosed, boxed-in world. And then when she goes on her adventure, we wanted to blow it out to CinemaScope anamorphic. So yeah, so we started, in that sort of academy, and then blew it out, and it was like the bus doors were a very natural transition point to make it kind of seamless. I mean, it's pretty noticeable. You must have been watching it on a phone, Paul. That's what I'm trying
No,
to.
no, no, no. I was watching it on my nice big TV downstairs. I was watching it on
Okay,
on a big-ish screen, and
gotcha.
no, yeah, no, it was fantastic, and it was literally something happened. I just thought, wow, it's changed. And of course, it's when the doors slide and it just carries on going. Yeah, it's brilliant. I really, really
Yeah,
thought it was
it
fantastic.
felt. it wasn't in the script, but it was something I was thinking about. Once we got down there and started, getting into the meat of it, it just felt like um, we hadn't chosen the exact lenses we were going to be using at that stage. It was all very, very early um, on, and then yeah, and glad we did it. It worked out really well.
And the score as well. I noticed that the score has got a very strong Western kind of vibe. Is that something you had in mind originally?
Yeah, yeah. So I live with a playlist about a year before I start anything, and kind of just go to sleep listening to get into the zone of the film, and then I bring the composer in and introduce that world to them, and then Carl I'd already worked with before, and just gave I said, can you make a score with just a harmonica and a whistler and a guitar? And he was like, yeah, sure, and deep down he was like, what an idiot, there's no way we're going to do that. And but he kind of got what I was referring to, and obviously Morricone's a huge influence on both of us. And so, there was one sort of theme from the Trinity film that I really love, and that was kind of the bedrock to me. It was always about it was the signature for like escaping into the movie universe when I was a kid. It was instantly I just hear a couple of notes and I know like, okay, this is a big landscape. This is what, it feels like adventure starts now. And then pairing that with kind of like those sort of early 80s adventure. So we were listening to a lot of Goldsmith, a little bit of Isham, and then, and Carter Burwell actually as well. And so yeah. And then I had these tr music tracks and songs that I definitely were influenced from the period and that I needed to get in there somehow. We actually had to cut quite a couple of tracks because it was there's only so much walking in in the wilderness you can handle with songs in the background, but I think we got the mix kind of spot on.
I agree. I agree. I think it's fantastic. And again, it's one of the elements that I really, really enjoyed. Just to sort of finish up, there's a couple of things that I want to talk about. The scene where there's a shooting star. Now, is that like a Jaws Steven Spielberg tribute or was it real?
I mean, the sky was incredible. The thing about that whole scene is it looks fake. It looks like we're on a set,
Yeah.
and that's how stunning the areas we were shooting. And that was that big monologue scene with Elijah and his whole David Bain um, volatile history. Uh, we had to time it perfectly because it was the magic hour, and it was all purple skies, and it was just stunning. And so, but I felt like I needed this is the Spielberg moment, so absolutely added that shooting star, and we didn't fluke it. But everything else is 100% real
Well, it
in
works
that sequence.
perfectly, and it kind of led me on to you already mentioned my last question, which is David Blaine. Was he consulted at all, or has he mentioned it afterwards?
No, he was not consulted at all. I mean, it's kind of because this film takes in kind of like the absurd parallel world to like the real world. You can kind of push those sort of matters. They're not really we kind of it all comes from a place of love. Like David, it's our characters, Strawn Wise's perception of their relationship and whether it's real or it's not. It's kind of like it's so exaggerated and bizarre that we kind of there's no way that any audience member would find that like that actually happened. So
No.
that's the protective nature of using absurd, pushing things to the extreme. But yeah, no, I love David Blaine, Toby Harvard, the writer. We both were kind of thinking like foils for him. And that, yeah, just coming up with that incredible history is a bit of Toby, a stroke of Toby's genius.
I love it. It's fantastic. Well, like I say, I really enjoyed the film. I thought it was amazing. And not only that, more importantly, so did my son. We got to the
Oh,
end of the film and he turned around and said, "Oh, Dad, that was really good." And when watching any film with your child, it can be hit or miss, can't it? It's
yeah.
either one of you is going to not like it. you know, it's if it's the latest Paw Patrol film or whatever, you're going to sit there and tolerate it. If it's something you like I don't know, The Goonies or whatever, then he's going to tolerate it. But to get to the end of that film and he'd go, "Oh, Dad, I really like that," I go, "Yes, okay, we have a winner."
Well, that's really good to hear. Yeah, no, I mean that was the biggest fear is that it would only work with one, you know, one side of the story, one side of the audience. So it's been nice to see to get that feedback that it plays kind of well for the right kids anyway, and parents. And that, I've suffered through enough kids films as a parent that are as appalling. So it was kind of like a slap in the face to those films.
Well, look, and thank you so much for talking to me. I really do appreciate it. Bookworm is available on digital platforms now, so go and grab it while you can because I highly recommend it. It's fantastic. And thank you so much for talking to me. Enjoy the rest of your day.
I will. Thanks so much, Paul. Really nice to talk to you.